you!
Good evening everyone, and welcome to Moonspirit 2.0. I'll be making some tweaks here and there to enhance my channel, and to celebrate my channel rebranding, I'll be looking at a reboot to a beloved franchise, Castlevania, Lords of Shadow. Now, I wasn't a Castlevania fan when I was a kid, as my only experiences with the series being a Game Boy game and the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS titles. So when news came that Castlevania was going to be rebooted by Hideo Kojima, I was simultaneously confused and excited. It's been 5 years since I played this game, but I don't have many fond memories of it. Maybe if I play it again, I'll have a better understanding as to why I liked it, or perhaps it will be a different outlook. But enough talk! Let's see if this game is still just as good as it was back then. Or maybe my memories deceive me. This is Castlevania Lords of Shadow. The year is 1047, and the lands are ravaged by evil creatures, and only the Brotherhood of Light can stop them. Gabriel Belmont, a member of the Brotherhood, must find a way to restore the balance between heaven and earth, and help the souls who perish, including his wife Marie, find peace. He soon meets another member of the Brotherhood named Zobek, played by Sir Patrick Stewart, and tells him of a secret prophecy that only a pure-hearted warrior must claim the powers of the Lords of Shadow to overcome evil. But that power can mean he can resurrect his Marie. So the quest is on to defeat the Lords of Shadow and claim their power in the form of the God Mask to unite the heavens back to their world. Okay, maybe I'm just jaded, but after watching too many movies and anime, this premise feels very cliché to me. In my eyes, the plot is just a troubled soul must avenge his slain beloved by destroying the evils of the land story, with a dash of the only the chosen one can wield the power trope I've seen 100 times. But the game does get interesting later on by the end parts, but I won't spoil it here. Gabriel gets help from an old god named Pan, and Pan definitely emanates Guillermo del Toro's work. There are some side characters in the story, but they are gone as quickly as they are introduced, which is a shame. In stories like this, especially in a Castlevania game, they shouldn't be treated like throwaway characters. And while Zobek shows up a few times in the game, he mostly narrates the level prologues. You can skip them as it's mostly exposition, but why would you not want to listen to Patrick freaking Stewart monologues? Don't answer. That was a rhetorical question. Let's move on. Say goodbye to Bishonen characters and gothic overtones, and hello to a much gruffer world because the Castlevania universe has been retooled into something different than what everyone expected from the series. The creature designs in particular scream the aforementioned Guillermo del Toro, and makes me wish he did work with video games. Damn you, Konami! Another big change-up is the score. No more familiar tunes like Vampire Killer and Bloody Tears, as composer Oscar Araujo brought in a gigantic orchestra to make the game feel more grand, and it works. I can't say I would be humming its music anytime soon though. Based on my playthrough, the locales can be divided into 3 sections: Forest and Ruins in the first third, a Vampirus' castle in the second, and the Lands of the Undead in the last. Castlevania wouldn't be Castlevania if it didn't include a castle, and this one is a marvel to behold. You'll have to traverse a garden's wintry hedge maze, the gears and cogs of the clock tower, and an observatory, just to name a few. Though the levels that stuck out to me the most were going through a music box full of death traps, and a tiny graveyard where you have to activate one of its remains to progress through the level. Definitely a great change of pace from what the originals gave us, despite the game's iffy pacing. Some sections of the game have a huge list of chapters to complete, but the next thing you know, you'll quickly blaze through the others, but maybe that's just me. As for the enemies, there are still werewolves and vampires, but they do showcase other creatures of the night to stir things up. But then there are these goddamn chupacabras. They steal your shit and you are tasked to get them back, all while they taunt you, which results into excessive padding for the game. Definitely not necessary. So, it has a new look and sound, but does it play like Castlevania? Lords of Shadow tries to be Castlevania, but it borrows too heavily from its contemporaries of that era. It has some titan battles like Shadow of the Colossus and ledge climbing similar to Uncharted, but the most obvious one is God of War. But that's not to say it's bad, because fights can get pretty rough and you have to think on your toes and figure out your next move. You gain XP by killing enemies to learn new moves and attacks, but your combat cross is also a tool that can help you traverse the levels and overcome obstacles. You do have sidearms like daggers, holy water, and fairies, but you also get to summon a demon with boobs. Because why not? But the game's biggest folly is the overabundance of quick-time events, from defeating enemies and mounting them, to even opening a gate. These segments abruptly stop the action. Same can be said when dealing with bigger enemies and bosses, and it becomes really monotonous. There are brain-teasing puzzles that reward you with XP, but you can skip them by paying with your XP, but there's no penalty for it, though you'll need them in the long run. There's also light magic, which heals you with every hit you land, and shadow magic, which increases damage and gives you the ability to quick dash. Thankfully, both magic has separate bars, so you don't have to worry about wasting too much energy when you need help or beating down monsters. But to use magic, you have to absorb these elemental orbs by killing enemies and stringing multiple combos. There are even statues that help refill them when there are situations that require magic, like activating switches. You do gain new equipment for new abilities like sprinting, double jumping, or breaking down weak walls. Throughout the levels are the bodies of fallen knights that either give you upgrades to your magic and health, or scrolls that depict their journeys before their demise, or warnings of the upcoming dangers ahead. Funny thing though, there are 2 scrolls that make Portal references. Hey, referencing Portal was a thing back then. There are hidden upgrades for your arsenal, though you need the equipment to retrieve them. However, throughout my entire playthrough, I never once backtracked to get a single one, and I beat it just fine. Well, for the most part. There are also trials that show up after being a level that you can attempt to beat, but I found they serve nothing more than to give you achievements, and a completionist I am not. Gabriel confronts each of the Lords of Shadow, Cornell the Werewolf and Camilla the Vampire, but it turns out these 2 were once the original founders of the Brotherhood of Light. Basically, they are the abandoned shadow versions of their former selves that were cast to Earth so their heavenly forms could be sent to heaven. How ironic that they were once the holy ones sworn to protect the land, only to give birth to the most unholy creatures upon it. After defeating them, Gabriel heads for the land of the Necromancers and finally assembles the God Mask, while Zobek shows up with his Devil Mask. He exposes himself as the Lord of the Necromancers, the final Dark Lord, and reveals his responsibility for the chaos that spread throughout by learning the dark arts of hell after growing tired of their powers being shared evenly. He also reveals that Gabriel killed Marie under the influence of the Devil Mask, and after much monologuing, Zobek kills Gabriel. However, the true mastermind behind it all turns out to be Satan himself, as he said that he was the one that gave Zobek the power so he could get his revenge against God, and then incinerates him. So yeah, it was all according to plan. Gabriel gets revived by Marie and faces off against Satan, and the fight isn't too difficult if you know what you're doing. Just string your combos right and attack with the right magic. Once Satan is defeated, all the lost souls are finally able to rest in peace. Unfortunately for Gabriel, the God Mask he sought after cannot bring Marie back to life. As Marie ascends to heaven, the game ends with Gabriel at a devastating loss with his newfound immortality. But the story doesn't end there. It flashes forward into a church where Zobek is still alive, and confronts Gabriel, now turned into a vampire named Dracula. They clash into the streets as it is revealed to be modern times, and Zobek tells him that Satan is about to rise again. He asks for Gabriel's help in exchange that he would end his immortality. Gabriel disappears, and the story truly ends with Zobek walking off on the rainy streets. There are 2 DLCs for this game called Reverie and Resurrection, which explain how Gabriel transformed into a vampire, and it involves fighting an entity called the Forgotten One. The first half has you controlling a vampirus in some sections, but it's nothing special. However, the second half spikes the difficulty level up to Mount Everest levels of hard as shit as you face the Forgotten One. The DLC overall wasn't too bad, but the boss battle alone was not worth the price of admission. So unless you enjoy a good challenge, do not download this. In the end, Lords of Shadow is a shadow of its former self. Maybe I've been spoiled from playing the Castlevania handheld games, but this game just doesn't stand out as a Castlevania game. When I think Lords of Shadow, I just think God of War with a Castlevania coat of paint. Don't get me wrong, it's got a gorgeous setting, a magnificent orchestral score, and it's a fun hack and slash game. But when comparing this to other Castlevania titles, I'd rather play those instead. If this game came out on its own merits, then maybe it could stand a chance, but even that is not enough in my eyes. Bottom line, this was a pointless reboot amongst others of its kind. Except for Tomb Raider though. And yet, the game sold so well, they made a sequel for it on the 3DS, and a second Lords of Shadow game. Reviews for this game aren't that great, but I'll have to see for it myself. Till then, I'm Moonspirit saying good night. Hey guys, thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to my channel to become a part of my Lunatic Legion, or Army, whatever I'm calling it. Either way, I want to give a quick shout out to Rasputin and Zentagon for helping revise my script. Those guys are the best, and be sure to check out their channels whenever you can. I'll put links to their channels in the description below. In the meantime, click on the Uncharted video on the left for my most recent review. If you want horror related games, click on the Deadly Creatures video on the right. I'm really proud of this one in particular, so be sure to check it out. Well, till then, I'm Moonspirit saying good night everybody.